Good afternoon. It was 36 years ago this week that the Chernobyl nuclear power plant disaster happened in Pripyat, Ukraine. It's considered the worst nuclear disaster in history, both in cost and casualties. According to Ukraine state authorities, it'll be approximately 320 years before the exclusion zone is habitable. According to other sources, it could be from 3,000 years to tens of thousands. It was 3 days after the incident before it was reported. In almost 40 years, there hasn't been a single version that would explain the causes without question. Theories range from a foreign agent to UFOs to a seismic event and even a cover up by Russia about the Duga 3 early warning missile array. Thanks for joining us on Weird Awakenings. Tonight we're exploring the weirdness surrounding the Chernobyl disaster. Joining me are Cecil and Tully from Where in the Folk. Hadley couldn't be with us tonight, but today is Author Appreciation Day, and I'd like you to show her some love and download her Tapestry of Worlds books from Kindle. They're on sale for 99 cents until May the 5th. They're also available on Kindle Unlimited. It's an awesome set of books. Give it a read and leave her some positive feedback. Don't forget to like and follow us on all the major outlets. Tell us what we're doing right, what we could improve, and tell us what you'd like to hear us talk about. Okay, guys. Tonight's going to be a good night.
we're going to start a GoFundMe for you to go to auctioneering school.
I don't know why, but I just got a real bad case of like deja vu. Like
I don't know why that is. Very, very much like to apologize for the late start, but we've had a full-on conversation, and I did not hit the go live button.
Oh, yeah, we were in deep too.
Yes, we were. So let's try this again. You want to start us out, Tully?
So there are a lot of people with a lot of different theories about how Chernobyl happened. I even if it's not completely accurate, I did enjoy the HBO series last year about Chernobyl. I think it was last year. It might have been 2020, but it's epic, even if some facts are distorted. But according to that account and the historical account of Chernobyl, they summed it up to pretty much negligence, to what Cecil was talking about when we weren't live. Mm-hmm. They thought they were going to run like a routine test, and mistakes were made, and the coolant rods, I'm pretty sure it was the coolant rods in the reactor, basically exploded, causing a big fire. And let's see, what I'm trying to think of everything that I said a minute ago. And yeah, the all of the first responders that responded to the fire, they saw pieces of the coolant rod, like just chunks of it, because I think it's some kind of ceramic, like basically what they make space shuttles out of to handle the heat. And oh yeah, she saw it. So the pieces, especially in the show, were depicted as like these Super Saiyan glowing pieces of rock. It almost looked like, absolutely.
It was.
It almost looked like this microphone, like the rocks were glowing like that, except it was more of a like blue green.
The only thing this disaster really has ever told me is that safety checks are bullshit, because that's what they was doing. They was doing a safety check, and that's when the biggest disaster in history occurred, as far as like anything like this goes. Well, besides Japan.
And what we talked about earlier, which I'll bring up again for the people listening. There's a super popular conspiracy theory amongst conspiracy theorists that suggests that nobody really has nuclear power in any capacity, including nuclear weapons. Like the bombs that were dropped in Japan were atomic. And basically it's just a scare tactic at the elite level to keep the countries in check, to keep from, destroying each other and going to war and all that good stuff. But even in Japan, whenever those A-bombs were dropped, you're talking about they think it's going to be 30,000 years before Chernobyl is inhabitable again. Mm-hmm. We dropped those A-bombs. There was definitely radioactive, radiation, and through generations from what we were taught, and people just went right back to Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and they're full blown cities again.
Right, right. And then this one, it's been 36 years, and there's a handful of families that have returned, and that's it.
Yep. Which
And
leads me to believe what you were talking about earlier is correct. If you want to lay that out, or the theory.
yes, of the books that I was talking about. Yeah, I've just been reading this set of books, and it's basically talking about this group of scientists that are trying to open a gateway into other dimensions so that they can look for an Earth that would be sustainable, so that we haven't destroyed yet, that they could go in and like grow food and stuff like that and save the world. Well, 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl, and the one that was over in Japan, I think it's Fumagachi or something like that.
Fukushima.
There you go, Fukushima. That sounds right.
Fukushima.
But said that all of those were actually earlier failed attempts at doing the same thing, and that they were covered up by saying, "Oh, it was a nuclear reactor meltdown."
We know Stargate. There was literally Project Stargate, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit that those were maybe earlier attempts at what they're doing with CERN right now, which shout out to CERN. They fired back up operations on Friday after 3 years of downtime. They've already hit a record.
Yeah.
I would have to, it's all, it's all astrophysics lingo, but they were hitting some measurement of physics that they had never hit before with CERN, as far as how fast they were firing the particles at each other. And they're going to break the record this year, according to them.
Oh, I saw someone post something about the Berenstain Bears today. Just
nice.
On that.
Well, we're going to have a ton of new ones.
Yeah,
That's right.
I don't know, the thought of that really does make sense, because they're always talking about how this world's ending and things like that, and how we don't have enough room for everybody. But if you've ever been to the Midwest or anything, it's empty.
Well, somebody did a study on that and crunched the numbers. You could fit every person on Earth in Texas.
So there's plenty of land. So I think if they were trying to find a different dimension, which they, 90% sure they are, they're probably trying to find it for nefarious reasons, to just leave us here by ourselves and get rid of this and start over or something.
Or go in and, rape the new dimension for, everything they can get out of it.
Have you guys ever seen that series, The Man in the High Castle? Where
I love that series.
It's about where the Nazis actually won World War II and how the timeline plays out after that. That show is based on a book, and the guy who wrote the book claims that he woke up in that reality and came back, and that's where he saw it all.
Wow.
Philip K. Dick. Yeah, it's a very, very interesting show. Even if it's, even if you only watch it for the fact that it's a totally new take on stuff, but it makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
that could be, a reality or another reality. Because who's to say that right now, that right beside us, there is not a place where Japan and Germany have the U.S. split, with a dead zone in the middle.
Well, and that goes back into infinite universe theory. Every single iteration that could ever have happened is happening all the time. Time isn't linear, basically.
Right.
It's all happening all at once.
Yeah.
And there's that goes into some of the afterlife play too. There's some theories that when you die in this life, you start at some point in another parallel universe. You just keep compressing yourself.
Like the movie One?
I don't know. Maybe.
Do you remember that movie? He goes into all these alternate dimensions to kill himself so that he gets more powerful each time he kills somebody.
Yeah, I guess that would be a similar concept. But
there's finally only 2 of them and they're equally powerful.
But more like the way it's explained as like your life force or soul is spanned across all these infinite universes, and every time one dies, it's like we've all had those moments where like you get the feeling where you shouldn't be alive, like you're in an accident or something happens, and you know that you shouldn't have survived it.
Yeah,
And
we still have to have that show.
yeah,
So,
and it's moments like that play into that, where those moments where you shouldn't have survived, you actually, transcended
mhm,
into a different, like a parallel timeline where you did survive.
right.
Because technically, if parallel universes are real and there's an infinite number of parallel universes, we're dying every single day in one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really grim.
Well,
We're also living.
yeah, but I mean, I just watched a movie recently. I can't remember the damn name of it, but it was kind of the same thing. This girl was killed, and then somehow there was like a rip between one universe and the next, and she came in and was ticked off because her best friend and her boyfriend were dating, and where she came from, they were still together. She was still alive, so they were on two totally different wavelengths because she was, remembering things that had happened in her world then, and in their world, she'd been dead for a year.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's tons of accounts of that where people literally there was a guy on one of the Reddit strings that I follow about this sort of stuff where he woke up and he was with his wife still,
Mhm.
but it was almost like his wife was a completely different person. Like he kept like referring to different things that they enjoyed doing. She suddenly liked foods that she hated the day before, like had always hated, and they ended up just like walking away from everything because she was like, "I don't know you," and
Mhm.
he didn't know her. So there's always stuff like that you hear about. But have we talked about? Did I talk about the elephant's foot on this one, or when we were not?
That was the previous one.
Okay.
That was the dress rehearsal.
So
I'd love to get a picture of that, but they've encased it in concrete now, haven't they?
well, they've got the whole thing in a tomb.
Yes,
Um,
that entire reactor. They were separating it from the safe areas.
I was hoping when I got my checkout notification, I'd just roll over there and take a picture of it. Yeah.
No, I'll try to reel us back in from outer space right now. So the elephant's foot in particular is something that is interesting. It's just like this blob at the bottom of the reactor that's so radioactive that no human being has ever survived looking at it. Because if you're within range to see it, you're in range to get killed by it.
You're already dead.
You're already dead.
You're already
And the only way they did get a picture, they had a robot and they managed to get the picture, but the robot was donezo after that.
Didn't somebody have to go get it and then they died?
Probably. Let me see if I can find
I was going to say, I've got this one picture showing a guy taking a picture of it, but this thing is not glowy like it is in the other pictures.
Well, yeah, nobody's taking a picture of that thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's the guy that died.
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
What if he's in there just in party mode, like sitting out like Captain Morgan?
Yeah. I was trying to find some, but I know for a fact that that area is flooded now where that elephant foot is. And one thing that I was talking to the crew about before we came on live, it doesn't make sense to me that, we're always wargaming nuclear technology and the aftermath and nuclear fallout. And if you had a nuclear reactor explode in that level, you've got all of that dust and smoke, which are radioactive. You've got all of the groundwater that's radioactive. And there's like I forget what you call it. It's like a water plane, right? Where groundwater moves across masses of land. And they've only, like, Chernobyl's not a huge space, I don't think, is it?
I mean,
Like,
They squared off like 1,000 square miles of it.
but comparatively, like, if you think about how far that smoke went and how far those particles went, how far that groundwater is going, it's getting sucked back up into the sky and moving and raining somewhere else. It just doesn't make any sense compared to what they always tell us nuclear fallout would be like, which also makes me call BS on just a nuclear opinion.
I mean, if everything that they say about nuclear weapons and things are true, every one of us have quite a bit of radiation already in our systems. Like, think about what we was doing in the desert in America, like the 30s, 40s, and 50s. We were setting off nukes constantly.
Right. Like, and that could be why everybody has cancer.
Yeah, it really could be. Yeah. Because, I mean, cancer, from my knowledge, which I'm not an authority on anything, but it's way more prevalent now than it ever has been. Like,
well, I mean, we were lied to about all history prior to 1900, so sure. Like, who knows? Maybe it is a result, which I think a big factor in cancer today, outside of air quality and stuff like that, is the fact that all of our food is poisoned.
All the gnomes.
And water.
Okay, look, I bought, and this is a little bit off subject, but not really. Okay, I bought some bagels. This has been many years ago. And I decided one day, I'm going to go grab a bagel. And then I realized these things had been expired for about a week. And they still look just as pretty as they did the day I bought them.
You got the infinity bagels?
I did. I left them on my counter intentionally just to see.
How long ago was that?
It's been about 5 or 6 years ago. 5 or 6 years, something like that.
People started noticing when COVID hit and everything was flying off the shelves. After everything calmed down a little bit, all of the bread that you buy now, the majority of it, I'll say, you'll notice that it takes an extremely long amount of time for it to mold compared to what it used to.
Buy bakery bread, and that stuff molds in like 3 days if you don't use it. The fresh bread that you buy. But no, I left these on my counter for weeks and weeks, and finally, I think after about 3 months, I decided to write the company and and just ask them.
Infinity bagels.
Yes. And like I said, I mean, I had them, like I said, on the counter probably 3 to 4 months, and I wrote the company and asked them, what the hell? I've never bought their bagels again because I don't want to eat those.
You always see,
like, why somebody complain they ain't going wrong,
right?
Like, I'm not gonna get political.
I'm too high class to buy anything except bakery fresh bread.
But we're on a subject right now where I can bring up something that is absolutely crazy to me, and there was a legislation introduced to ban menthol cigarettes this week.
Oh yeah.
And everybody's like, yeah, ban cigarettes. And I'm like, okay, but that's not what's killing everybody. Be out
here buying dime bags of tobacco as well.
All of these, all of the dyes and there's so many chemicals used in our food that are illegal in other countries.
I was going to say, we're the only country that has not banned Monsanto.
Really?
Yes. You cannot, cannot sell in Europe.
So dandelions are one of the most powerful things for your heart that exists.
I love dandelions.
Allegedly. Dandelion root has been used throughout history as one of the most powerful heart supplements ever. Monsanto makes Roundup to kill dandelions, and they also make the heart medication that Roundup causes the problems for your heart for.
Allegedly.
Do you know,
that's fact.
I'm going to tell you this. Okay. And also a dandelion lets you get wishes. But I'm going to tell you, my husband, knowing how I am, and like I said, he doesn't, he would tell us we've lost our minds most Friday nights, but certain things that he does make me know that it's okay. You know, it doesn't matter. We don't have to agree on things. But he found over in he was going to Montana. The only state in the country he had not been to was Montana until this past year. He stopped on the side of the road and picked me dandelion seeds from another state and brought them home to me so I could plant them. So I'll keep him.
Montana might be untouched too because nobody lives there.
That's right. There's like one person for every 2 square miles or something like that.
That's my ultimate goal, is to live in this little man-made shed,
Mhm.
like in the Montana mountains.
Uh-huh.
Nothing but my mathematical books.
You know, running from it's all and good, but eventually there's not going to be anywhere to hide out from all this.
See, I want an underground house. And if I ever build a house from the ground up, there will be a full-size underground house underneath my house that's on top of the ground. Then I'm going to have to kill the people who built it so they can't tell anybody about it.
You have to have them do it one room at a time.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll keep that in mind. So, okay, here's a question. What was it? Remember back in Russia, you know, a lot of stuff happens in Russia, just for the records. In the early 1900s, they have the big forest that they can't decide whether it was nuclear, whether it was an asteroid that, you know, killed all the trees and yada,
Is that
yada,
the
yada.
red forest?
Yeah,
Yes.
the one that blew
Right.
out.
Yeah, that's the one. Okay. That place still hasn't recovered, but a place that had the nuclear power that Chernobyl does
Well,
has trees growing and
Yeah, all kinds of wildlife.
that was probably some not us technology, if I was guessing.
Yeah.
And like the thing about Chernobyl is like they're abundant with wildlife.
Hmm.
And as far as like the mutants that you hear about, like the mutated animals you hear about, is mostly farm animals. The wildlife, like deer and stuff like that over there, they're not really that bad mutated, except like monsters.
Yeah, my favorite mutated animal is the headless deer that people see.
Oh yeah,
The headless deer. I
Is
missed
Yeah,
that.
that glows too.
Yeah, there's literally there's pictures and stuff of it. It's a headless deer that can run extremely fast.
That might not be a deer. That might be one of them skinwalkers.
Could be.
Mhm.
What other? Didn't you say there were more cryptids, Cecil?
Oh yeah, there's a huge black bird that they apparently seen. That's apparently it's a mutated crow, probably with a 7-foot wingspan, bloodshot red eyes.
And the dude from River Monsters went there to catch one of those mutated catfish too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they supposedly have a pack of zombies that run around there. You know, let's see. And what's so crazy about it is we was talking about this. Is people live there, like they just live everywhere in there. They after they got evacuated, they was like, "Nah, screw this, we're going back home."
Mhm.
There's something called a fatalistic use syndrome or something similar to that. That might just be what the layman term is for it. I'm not a scientist, obviously. I'm
You know what's scary is when we talked about Lake Lanier in Georgia.
Yeah.
There was an incident where a truck full of chickens wrecked into that lake, and they were trying to recover it, and the divers couldn't recover the trailer because there were Volkswagen-sized catfish in that lake, which is probably some of the, the reason there's lore around like monsters in that lake. But if you could already have natural catfish that get that big, and you've got mutated catfish, you've got something that could probably swallow a man.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's true.
And a catfish will eat anything.
True.
The goat of the sea.
That's right. We're up the river anyway. As far as I know, there aren't any in the ocean.
That's the closest thing to a sea I ever get to see. So
Oh, come on, guys. The sea is awesome. I don't care if it has big giant stuff that'll, reach out and touch you if you're not careful.
megalodons and
Mm-hmm.
triceratopses.
Well, like,
will land well.
See,
but I
when
mean,
you start
uh,
when you start getting into the hundreds of pounds, though, you ever seen those people deep sea fishing? And they got the huge spool rod.
Yeah, my husband does that every year.
And you got to put on a literal like mountain climbing vest and hook yourself in and the rod to you so that you don't get pulled out to sea. Like that's what I imagine it to be like to catch a fish that big. You either your rod's gone, you're gone, or you're strapped in like you're pulling in a great white shark.
Well, hell, Tola, you're so strong, you could probably catch one noodling.
My dad's
just pull it out of
there. My dad, one of his best friends, back years ago, broke the state record for catfish in Mississippi, and it weighed 69 pounds at the time. That was the ugliest thing I have ever seen in my life.
Dude, I mean, Pixie Stick brought up I think the zombie deer and the headless deer are the same thing.
Yeah, it runs around with its head lopped off, glowing light blue or green or something. There's all kinds of cryptids like around there. The strange thing though is there's a lot of people that live there now. Like they still got what 40, 50 people still around them.
Yeah, like I said, they went back. Even though they were told not to, they said, hell, it's home. I'm going back.
And they got that fatalistic youth thing going on too, like where all the young people just feel dread like all the time. And I was like, yeah, there's not anything around there except the abandoned carnival.
Right, exactly.
So there's a story about a sergeant whenever they were going through it, not with a search party or something. And they noticed something that kind of jumped back into the woods whenever they had their lights on. So they turned the lights off and they told the guy not to fire his gun yet, just to see what it was. They turned the lights on dim, and they said that a spider walked out with legs that were 3 feet long.
Okay, between that and the damn skies raining spiders, I'm going to hurt you. I have very few fears. Snakes don't bother me, but spiders, ugh. Yeah. If it starts raining spiders in August, I'm coming to Kentucky strictly to whip your butt.
Yeah, I mean, if it's already radioactive, they should just get the few people that are living there out and just nuke it.
Yeah.
To prove that they have nukes. And then show us the before and after radiation.
But I mean, I'm sitting here right now.
Back in real soon.
I'm sitting here right now looking at this picture of Chernobyl today, and there's more trees there than there is in the state of Mississippi. I mean, it's covered in greenery. So
you would think it would be like Book of Eli, scorched earth,
right? Or like I said, or like the big blast in the middle of the forest over there. That nothing would grow. But like I said, it's
Cecil. I don't think you talked about the alien component on this one.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, that's kind of simplistic. Like they basically just think that this was such a horrible disaster that it should have taken the world out. By the way that you talk about it attaching itself to the groundwater, being evaporated, the cloud drifting over everything.
It should have at least, in my opinion, affected the whole continent over there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But they just think that aliens came in and intervened and like basically put up a. But they basically think that the aliens came in and intervened and basically put up a force field to keep everything from traveling the world and destroying everything. So,
well, I mean, like I said, it there's no way this place should look as clean as it does. Because even though there are like mutated animals and stuff, wildlife's thriving over there.
Yeah. I don't know. Like it's definitely a conspiracy theory, but I think there's vested interests, not just Russia, but there's all countries like at the very top. I'm not talking about politically at the top. I mean, the people who actually are pulling the strings. Yeah. those folks have a vested interest, just like with Antarctica. Nobody's. You can go to one little piece of ice and see the penguins in Antarctica, but you're not walking inland.
Hey, there is a post office in Antarctica. They are hiring. Interested? Look at Cecil.
That's his dream job.
I would do that for sure. I want to talk about the carnival before you wrap up, because that's the coolest thing to me. They just built this carnival, and it was supposed to open on May 1st, which would have been about 5 days after this happened. Because it took about a week to get everybody out. And they was like, well, hell, let's open on the 27th of April, get everybody a little carnival time, So while this place was filling with deadly fumes, supposedly everybody's partying at the carnival.
Well, and when I saw that carnival, the first thing I thought about is that place up in, I forget where it's at, but it's in the U.S. that is supposed to be like one of the most haunted places.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't know what it's called, but it's the same. Like that's one thing we haven't talked about is Chernobyl is supposed to be extremely haunted.
Yeah.
That don't make sense though, really. I mean, because inside Chernobyl, there's like 100 deaths maybe from the blast.
Something like that.
The rest of the 100,000 and so was like after they moved and they died from the radiation poisoning.
There were only about 300 people, Cecil.
All right. So. Cool, man. That's 300. I mean, there's more people that die like that around here.
They were cruel. They were terrible deaths too. Like it took some of them like 2 weeks to die of radiation poisoning.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
What is that vitamin K that you're supposed to take like immediately when you think you've been exposed?
I think it's maybe vitamin. Is that the same thing as iodine?
Oh, I don't remember.
Ketamine?
No.
Ketamine? No, I don't think that's it. Even though ketamine might not make you care.
Yeah, I think maybe I know what you're talking about, and I think iodine is maybe either a preventative or something they give to people who've been exposed.
Right. Not that it has any bearing on that at all. I'm just trying to think of things I need to be stocking up on.
Yeah, I mean, some of these stories are crazy. Not to get too morbid, but the people who did die of radiation poisoning, in most cases, they couldn't even put their clothes on them because of how swole their bodies were, like barrel sized.
Yeah.
What's up, Mark?
I always thought that was what vitamin K was.
Well, that's the street name. Okay, there actually is a vitamin cases.
Oh, okay.
Just FYI. See, your day is complete. You've learned something new.
Knowledge is power.
That's right. Hey, Mark.
Did you say another group was firing up at 9?
Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and cut this one short, but definitely some cool stuff to think about.
Next week, we'll remember to hit the live button.
That's right.
Do you just want to pick up where we left off next week?
Yeah, we can do that. So we were doing the Nazca lines.
And I don't know anything about that, so I'm going to have to look into that.
Okay.
I know everything about everything.
Well, do you want to skip that one and go straight to voodoo and hoodoo?
Sure.
It's up to you.
I'll tell you what. Let me move Nazca back down the line some, and we'll just go into voodoo and hoodoo next week.
Okay.
That work?
Join us next week for voodoo.
Voodoo.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. And until next time, stay weird.